Right. Thank you. Yep. Thanks so much. Our agenda for today, like I said, we talked about some housekeeping and logistics. We're going to go over school security funding, and quick overview, some top considerations for competitive applications. We're going to talk a little bit about preparing for security grants and give off some tips. And then we will conclude with Bluum's grants and advisory services.
Perfect.
I'll head over. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. Eureka Meziab is our grants and funding specialist here at Bluum, and Ryan Siemens is our vice president of product. You can take it away, Eureka.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm so excited to be joined by Ryan today. And of course, Sarah, thanks for monitoring the chat and keeping us on track. I wanted to dive in first with an overview of the funding structure that exists in the States. I'd be really interested to know what types of districts and schools that you're coming from, but all funding can be categorized into federal, state, and local funding. Federal being the most competitive with the most widest geographic availability of funds. State is a little bit more general. You can think of it as any initiatives such as like the Texas School Safety Standard grants that are available, sometimes through a title grant. And then local initiatives, those are mostly taken advantage by our private schools and charter schools that may not qualify for state and federal funding. Each grant has a different set of allowable costs and what equipment would be covered. So we always provide support in decoding what the grant proposal is. Most grants are reimbursements, so you'll pay for the products and then claim the reimbursements on the grant. We're here today to discuss school safety that ties directly into our mission to improve learning and make it more accessible. We find that safe classrooms are imperative for a learning environment that makes learning accessible. And I'll pass it on to Ryan early on, just so you can walk us through the engagement model where this is our core system in place.
Perfect, thank you. So first things first, I remember to unmute, so that's positive. Secondly, I'm a former educator and worked in a district for about 9 years before moving over to this organization. So when we're supporting schools and in districts with anything, any investment, we really are looking at how do we help you identify the right solutions for what you're trying to accomplish, whether there's any active problems or things that you're potentially anticipating in the future. So for all of our product categories and our solutions, we run through this with the schools we work with, especially if it's something as that we need to be as mindful of as physical security and creating those safe learning spaces to support effective teaching and learning. So the first thing that we do, especially in the physical security space, but all categories, is establish a shared vision for the future. What are you looking to achieve, not just tomorrow, but 5-10 years down the road? And how do those outcomes impact the investments that you're making today? Part of that is we go through a strategic planning process with you. So strategic planning is really identifying the information that's going to help you and us make the best decisions based on what your goals are. So that can be, how many students do you have? How many buildings do you have? The number of staff. What solutions do you currently have in place? What types of support staff do you have? Everything down to what is the flow of foot and car traffic in the mornings and in the afternoons. So we really look at all of those different variables to begin to design the solution that will be most impactful for you. Also, of course, strategic planning. Part of it is budget. Like Eureka and Sarah talked about, having grants available and supplementary funding in addition to what funding you might have from your organization. So designing this solution, what we really focus on is three key areas. There's a lot of products and services and thoughts under each umbrella, but really it's what are we doing to create a safe environment outside of the building? So that could be in the parking lot, that could be at a football game, that could be at any event outside. So what solutions do we have in place to create the safest environment there? What solutions do we have at the door? And then what solutions do we have inside? So really what we're looking to do as part of that solution design is leaning back on your future, or the vision of your future and the strategic planning, to identify what scaffolded approach makes the best sense for you based on what you're trying to achieve. From there, once we've identified that, or you've identified the solutions that you need, it's really about implementing. So it's not just here's the product, it's everything from getting the product installed and having, for example, if it's a surveillance camera, making sure it's looking the right direction, it's enrolled in the VMS, all the way to things like district or school-wide communication systems. I think with physical security, unfortunately, lately we've been thinking about some of the worst case situations, but from the Bluum perspective, we're kind of looking at the continuum. So we're looking at, is there a behavior issue that we need to address, and how do these solutions impact the behavioral issue, all the way to obviously a lot of violence and things that we've seen in the past. So there is a continuum, and then based on what you're trying to solve, again, it goes back to the solution design. So the implementation, it's really not just the product, but it's making sure that we have the product installed, that it's in the system correctly, it's viewable, it's operable, it's meeting the needs that you need in your organization. And then ongoing support, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but oftentimes it's forgotten. The idea of once something is in place and it's implemented, how do we have ongoing support for you all, whether that is remotely, whether that's a training, whether that's a technical service team. The idea is, with things as important, or with products as important to people's physical safety and security, we need to have those running as often as possible. 100% is the goal. So creating a mechanism to support you there. And then the community awareness, this tends to fall into other categories that we support, but as a whole, I'm not speaking specifically to physical security here, but it's a good nice to know for you all is we do have resources, human resources, documents, etc., to help you message to your external stakeholders and community around how a certain adoption is impacting teaching and learning. So I know we're not talking about devices and flat panels and voice amplification, et cetera, on this call, but that is something that we focus on, as well as if you don't have your own, for lack of a better term, PR department, we have resources available to help advise you on how you do that. Next.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan, for that overview. And, it's really great to have a roadmap of how we can support you through from the start of establishing a future to all the way to after implementation. So thanks for giving us a roadmap. Well, I would like to go over the top 4 considerations that most grants share in the school security sphere. Just to name them all right now. First is a compelling vulnerability and risk assessment, demonstrated financial need, clear security priorities, and overall district support. So what is the compelling vulnerability and risk assessment? Most security grants require some sort of assurance that a vulnerability assessment or a risk assessment has been conducted recently, and a vulnerability assessment is an ongoing process to identify and evaluate the potential risks that your district or school might face. And this is typically done through law enforcement, and it's a report. They'll be able to identify each of your campuses and see what's needed. So this is basically building the foundation on building that compelling narrative of why you require grants to support your projects. After that, one big consideration is financial need. I know many of you have been applying to grants, and you can really tell that sometimes the most perfectly written application won't get funded due to different factors, and financial need is one of them. Many grants ask for a comprehensive understanding of the district's financial position. So it's good to know what your free and reduced update. It's good to know your updated free and reduced lunch statuses, and how much money you've invested in your security systems. All that history is good to have on hand in case an application does ask for financial information. Another one is a clear security priority. Many grants are focused on evidence-based strategies for combating those vulnerability weaknesses. So it's really important to know what the top priority is and have a specific application. And of course, the vulnerability assessment ties into this tip. And lastly, district support. Understanding the policies and procedures early on of what your district or school has in place to submit grants is crucial, due to especially federal grants. They require multiple signers, multiple accounts in different databases. So we really advise that you get ahead of that process and make sure that there's transparency for you to have a roadmap of how to submit the grant. Our next steps that we advise at this point for applying to 2024 grants is one, gather evidence and gather data. So conduct the vulnerability assessment with local law enforcement, so you have a 2023 update, and then gather evidence. Many grants ask for the rates of violence in your school, so you having those data points from your last completed school year in 2022 will become crucial in your next application. At this time, engaging key stakeholders is key to start the conversation of what security upgrades would be the most impactful to your district or school. We've provided a list of key stakeholders identified in the SBPP OFFS grant, which is a federal school hardening grant. And lastly, knowing the policies and procedures, as we talked in the previous slide, build awareness within your leadership and make sure that you have the buy-in to apply, and get familiar with the policy and procedures. So how we can support you in your journey to apply for security grants is we offer courtesy grant services to you at no cost or commitment. We offer technical support email line, so you can contact us with a grant and we can really decode it and make sure that you're eligible, that your allowable costs are covering your project, what overhead is required, all of that decoding of 60+ pages of some federal grants. We also offer application draft review, and that's to make sure that your application narratives are aligned with the criterias of the grant. We can only edit draft applications. Unfortunately, we don't offer grant writing services, but we do offer editing. And 15-minute one-on-one support where you can request a call with us. unlimited number of times, so we can really be there to answer those questions that always come up once you start writing the grant. And I'd like to add our product information is to visit our website. We'll be providing a link to in this slide to make sure that you can access all of our product information. Your account executives can also lead you to the website and to make sure that you understand the products and pricing for your security project. Your account executive can also connect with you to provide customized consultation and connect you with vendors. And I think Sarah will be sending you Bluum offering guide to make sure that you have all that you need. But that brings us to the end of the presentation. We have 2 emails that's listed here, education@bluum.com or grants@bluum.com. You can reach us there for any questions regarding your specific project, and we look forward to connecting with you. I think there's some chats, right?
Thanks. Yeah, Eureka, we do have 2 questions in the chat. The first one is, do you have any suggestions for a vulnerability assessment?
Yeah, most vulnerability assessments that are accepted by grant funding agencies are with your local law enforcement. So that could be your sheriff's department or police, but whoever is in your jurisdiction, I think, would be the person to contact. And most vulnerability assessments can be conducted through them.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then our next question is, do you by chance have a COPS grant timeline?
COPS grant timeline, it varies year to year, but mostly it releases in late spring. This is a federal grant with the Department of Justice, and application periods, I believe this year was in May. And we're still waiting to hear back on the award notification. So we're hoping to get that any day soon.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Rika. I think we may have had another hand raised, but it might have gone down. So if you have a question that you'd like to pop in the chat, or I can take you off mute to talk with Eureka, or feel free to email into some of our links. You'll get, like I said, access to this presentation. You'll get access to the video recording, and you'll have access to all the emails and links that we talked about during the presentation. So you can contact us with any questions or different things that you may need following the conclusion of this webinar. Oh, I think we have one more question, Eureka. It says, I
yes,
understand to partner with local law enforcement, but is there a specific format for the assessment for things that we should be looking for?
So there's no specific format that's required. It varies greatly from each agency, but it should be specific to a vulnerability assessment. Always has a recommendation of what specific areas your school or district is lacking in vulnerability. So you can submit a vulnerability assessment as a attachment to most applications. So there's no specific format, but reviewers always look at what the recommendations were in the vulnerability assessment.
Okay, great.
Can I add to that real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I know a former Minneapolis police officer, and he actually did these in partnership with some other individuals within their department. So these agencies should be used to the request, and they will identify, like Eureka said, they'll look at everything from, like I said, outside to the door to inside, and they will provide you a report on where there's weaknesses or openings for criminals, for lack of a better term. So or medical emergency areas, if you don't have the ability to communicate a medical emergency quickly, they'll identify those as well. So if you reach out to any of those agencies, and simply ask for an assessment, there is a very high likelihood that they've done them before and they know what you're talking about. If they don't, feel free to reach out to us and we can make some connections for you as well.
Yeah, I think Ryan, you summed it up really well. It really has to do with the recommendation that comes out with assessment, and how you're implementing that recommendation is what the evidence-based mindset of some of these grants are. Thank you for that question, Matthew.
There's one more question, Eureka. Any other tips on looking up and filtering available federal, state, and local grants eligible for your specific agency?
Sure. We offer grants identification services. So as a part of the courtesy grants, and we look at your project and look at opportunities that might be the best fit. So besides looking at databases like grants.gov, I would say email us and we can do an assessment for you. But as for grants in general, I would say looking at your budget and knowing what you need to start the search. I think a lot of grants vary from size, so you can automatically find grants that are more suitable for you, and of course the eligibility of the products that you're looking to fund.
Absolutely, yes. Are there any other questions that we can help out with today? Okay, great. Well, thank you all. Thank you for your questions and thank you for your participation. We really appreciate you coming, like I said, and you'll be hearing from us with a follow-up email coming soon. It's great chatting with you all. And thank you, Eureka and Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.